Hell is Us was made on Unreal Engine 5, and just by hearing this you have the right to be cautious, as most of the recent Unreal Engine 5 releases were received poorly, especially in regards to performance. But this is one of the exceptions, and by that I mean that it doesn't reach the terrible state the others were in when they released. Now let's get into the performance of the game. Starting with CPU performance, which I tried my best to bottleneck the CPU, but I couldn't. The frame rate reached around 60 to 80 FPS in this area, and I was still GPU limited. So users with much older CPUs like my R5 3600X will be glad to hear they can at least achieve a stable 60 FPS, if not higher, assuming your GPU is also up to the task, as this is a demanding game. Now let's get into the settings. Starting with effects, the most important impact this setting makes is when going from medium to high. It blends the materials of different intersecting objects, resulting in a much more natural look to the environment. It also controls other areas of the game, one of which I noticed was this area with lots of water, fog, and other particles. The impact to the FPS can be drastic in such areas, especially when going over high, which is why I recommend high as the best balance. For foliage, each option gradually increases foliage quality, density, and even the level of detail, aka render distance. The performance impact depends on the scene, and lowering this setting too much can introduce pop-in relatively close to the camera. As you can see in this comparison, the pop-in on low and medium can be easily seen. It's much more acceptable on high, and even better on very high and ultra. But I found that those options can further lower performance measurably in areas with dense foliage, which is why my recommendation is high. Global illumination looks basically the same on low and medium. It improves its quality slightly on high, and even further improves its quality and accuracy on very high. Ultra looks no different to very high in this scene. I also found that using low or medium can introduce annoying shimmering on some surfaces. High reduces the shimmering a little bit, but only on very high does the shimmering go away. Unfortunately, very high comes with a large performance impact, which is why I recommend you use high for better performance. Post-processing seems to enable vignetting and motion blur on medium, and bloom on high. I wasn't able to notice any other effects it enabled afterwards. Depth of field should be enabled somewhere in there. Performance-wise, its impact is negligible, so I recommend sticking to Ultra. And if you were worried about motion blur, there is a separate setting to control its intensity, and you can even turn it off entirely. The reflection setting doesn't appear to make a noticeable difference to water surfaces like puddles. I found that it controlled the specularity of foliage, and no matter the scene, on very high and ultra, it comes with a large performance impact. So, I recommend sticking with high for almost free FPS. I wasn't able to find any difference the shading setting made, as its image quality and performance remained the same. The shadows setting has a very subtle impact between each option, and at a quick glance, you might not even tell the difference between low and ultra. But let's get into it even more. This setting also seems to affect the character's contact shadows from specific light sources, which looks way too blocky and distracting on low and medium. It also controls the quality of some light sources like in this scene. As for performance, I found the worst case scenario was in cutscenes, specifically this first one, where performance is impacted even further than during gameplay. My recommendation is high for the best balance. The texture setting only controls the quality of very few textures in the game. I almost missed them, and I could only see the improvement when going from low to medium. As for the VRAM usage, it slightly increased overall, up to medium that is. Then it stayed the same. It doesn't look like this setting has any real scalability in terms of VRAM. The view distance setting is straightforward. Visually, this scene explains what it does. However, other scenes can impact performance measurably. Therefore, I recommend very high for better performance. For upscaling, going from native TSR to XeSS Ultra quality makes the image quality softer and definitely loses a lot of detail. FSR3 is similar, but it retains some detail in the image. Using DLSS, however, retains the most detail in the image, and it looks the sharpest and most defined. The difference can be seen more easily when looking at these thin tree branches. In motion, the negatives are even more apparent. All upscalers suffer from some sort of image artifacting or instabilities, and using XeSS, the entire image becomes softer, as if it was smeared with Vaseline. FSR3 quality suffers from major shimmering on a lot of objects in the scene. DLSS also suffers from some shimmering, but it seems to only be limited to the character, and its severity is the least so far, which is why it is my recommended setting if your GPU supports it. And here are the optimized settings. Don't forget that you can support me on Patreon and get to download and watch my optimization guide videos such as this one without the YouTube compression. Now let's get into the performance. Using max settings at native 1440p, the game averages around 20 FPS. Using the optimized settings still at native 1440p, we increased the average frame rate to just over 30 FPS, but we can still dip below 30 FPS in demanding scenes. Using DLSS quality, increased the average frame rate to just under 50 FPS. This is a very demanding game, but at least it is scalable. What do you guys think?